learners, welcome to the Caribbean. So we are moving outside of the United States now down into the Caribbean islands. Make sure you find in your reading packet the Caribbean islands. So you're reading along with me in the right section. Take a moment to make sure you're there. Also grab a pencil or highlighter so that you can grab those important details. All right, let's go ahead and get started into the Caribbean. So today we're going to do land, water, and climate. And when we're done, you're going to answer a couple questions. The first one is, there are over 7,000 islands in the Caribbean. The second one, all of the islands in the Caribbean are flat with deserts in the middle. The third, over 100 billion gallons of water fall on El Yuknik rainforest each year. And the fourth, the beaches in the Caribbean have black, white, or even pink sand. So let's think about those as we get into our reading. All right, so first of all, the Caribbean islands. There are 13 independent countries in the Caribbean. Some of those countries are a single island, while other countries consist of several islands. Some of the islands belong to other nations, including the United Kingdom, France, Netherlands, and the United States. So the Caribbean islands are all independent countries. They're not all one country, like we as the United States. The islands of the Caribbean Sea are divided into three main groups. The Bahamas, which is up here near Florida, the Greater Antilles, which are these large islands of Cuba and Dominican Republic and Haiti, which is Hispaniola, and then the Lesser Antilles, which are over here, Puerto Rico, and all these little teeny tiny islands. The Bahamas alone are a group of 700 islands just up here. People inhabit only about 30 of the Bahamian islands. South of the Bahamas are the largest islands of the Caribbean called the Greater Antilles, which are these islands here. The Greater Antilles include the large islands of Cuba, Jamaica, which is down here to the south, Puerto Rico over here, and Hispaniola, which is Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The rest of the Caribbean islands form an arc, kind of like a rainbow turned on its side, over here. You see that arc that stretches from Puerto Rico to the coast down of South America. The group of smaller islands is known as the Lesser Antilles. So this is a picture of kind of like what we did: Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, Central America, South America, Caribbean Sea, Atlantic Ocean, and the islands. The islands of the Caribbean are part of an archipelago, a chain of islands, which separates the Caribbean Sea south and the Atlantic Ocean north. They're made up of more than 7,000 islands. There's an answer to a question. So all of this Caribbean is more than 7,000 islands. The islands of the Caribbean are very different. There's a hint. Some of the islands are mountainous. Others are flat as pancakes, so not all of them. Some are covered in tropical rainforest. Others are dry deserts. Some began as coral reefs, while others began as undersea volcanoes. That's a lot of information. Cuba, the largest island, you might want to underline that, is more than 500 miles across. Some of the other islands are less than 1 mile across. So the largest island in the Caribbean is Cuba. The highest mountain range in the Caribbean, the Cordillera Central, stretches all the way from Cuba through the island of Hispaniola to Puerto Rico. So the island is actually parts of the mountain ranges. Most of the mountain range is underwater. That's how it stretches from one to the next. Many of the islands in the Caribbean are actually the tops of the Cordillera Central, reaching above the ocean water. So the islands are actually the tops of mountains because the mountain's under the water. These islands all have mountains in the middle. Some of these mountains are volcanoes, and the beaches have black sand from the volcanoes. Hint. The tallest mountain in the Caribbean is Pico Duarte in the Dominican Republic. Pico Duarte is 10,164 feet high. And here is a statue of Juan Pablo Duarte, which sits at the top of Pico Duarte, the tallest mountain. It's in the Dominican Republic. Duarte is known as the father of the country, kind of like we say George Washington is the father or founder of the United States. Tropical rainforests are found on many of the Caribbean islands. The largest rainforests are on Dominica, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Each year, more than 100 billion gallons of rainfall on Puerto Rico's El Unique rainforest. Hint, hint, 100 billion gallons of rainfall. You might want to underline that. The rainforests contain many plants and animals found in few other places in the world, meaning they're only there, such as the cocoa, a tiny tree frog often no bigger than 1 inch. And here's a little picture of it. The Caribbean has many coral reefs covering 20,000 square miles. Reefs circle many of the smaller islands, including Aruba, Bonaire, Antigua, and the Cayman Islands. One of the largest coral reefs in the world is in the Bahamas. Although coral looks like it's made of rock, it's actually a colony of millions of tiny animals called polyps that feed by filtering plankton from the water. So plankton are little teeny tiny baby fish, and they go into the coral pieces, they eat it, and they filter out the water. The coral polyps attach to rocks and other solid underwater formations, such as a shipwreck. Hard shells protect coral polyps, and it is these shells that give a reef its stony-looking appearance. And here is a picture of a coral reef with some sharks in it. Coral reefs create a habitat for an entire ocean ecosystem. That means all the animals and plants there. The nooks and crannies are the small little areas of coral reefs shelter sea urchins, crabs, and other invertebrates. Many species of fish like to graze on the algae, meaning eat it. Eels go through coral tunnels, and predators such as barracudas and the tiger sharks swing through the reefs in search of prey. While the beaches on the volcanic islands have black sand, the beaches on the coral islands have white or pink sand. There's an answer. The white sand is formed by green parrotfish. There's the parrotfish. Parrotfish feed on the algae that live on the inside of those coral polyps, making up the coral. To get to the algae, the parrotfish must scrape away at the live coral with its parrot-like beak and swallow pieces of the hard coral skeleton. So it uses its mouth here to scrape it away. As the hard coral goes through the parrotfish, it is crushed up by its digestive system into small little pieces, and grinding teeth in its throat help to do that too. Eventually, the coral is excreted by the parrotfish as small grains of white sand. One parrotfish can produce a ton of soft white sand each year. That's really cool that the white sand comes because of the parrotfish. Pink sand is formed by tiny red organisms that grow on coral reefs. These organisms fall to the ocean floor when they die, and their red shells are broken up by the surf, like when it comes in and out, into fine, soft, pink-colored sand. So we have black, pink, and white sand. The Caribbean Sea itself is one of the largest saltwater seas on the planet. Its deepest point is the Cayman Trough between the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. At 25,220 feet below sea level, the trough contains the world's deepest chain of undersea volcanoes. So a trough is like a big low point, almost like a valley between the volcanoes, going way down to the bottom of the ocean. Let's talk about the climate. What's the weather like there? When we're done, you're going to answer these three questions. The weather in the Caribbean is usually cool and rainy. Is that true or false? Hurricanes are a danger to the islands of the Caribbean, and none of the volcanoes in the Caribbean has ever erupted. Let's find out what's true and false. The islands of the Caribbean enjoy a warm, tropical climate, which means that the weather is usually hot and damp. There's an answer to a question. Hot and damp, warm tropical climate. The temperature doesn't change much between the hottest and the coolest months. The temperature is usually around 82 degrees in July and around 75 degrees in January, so not much of a difference. Instead of a winter and a summer season, the Caribbean has a dry season from November to April when it doesn't rain as much, and a hotter, wet season from May to October. Almost all the rain for the whole year falls in the wet season. Tropical storms and hurricanes are a danger in the Caribbean. Hint, hint. Storms frequently hit the coast between June and October. Hurricanes are huge storms up to 600 miles across with the strong winds of 75 to 100 miles per hour. Dangerous winds can extend 200 miles out from the center of a hurricane. We kind of know about hurricanes here in Florida. Each hurricane usually lasts for over a week, moving 10 to 20 miles per hour over the open ocean. Hurricanes rotate in a counterclockwise direction, so the opposite way a clock moves, around the center of the storm, or what we call the eye of a storm. The eye of the storm is the calmest part with very light winds. When hurricanes come onto land, the heavy rain, strong winds, and large waves can cause a lot of damage to property and can be dangerous to people and animals. And we unfortunately know about that here in Florida. There are at least 19 active, likely to erupt again, volcanoes in the Caribbean. So have they erupted? There you go. Yes, sirree. While Montserrat's Sulphur Hills volcano is the only one in the region that's still currently erupting, the volcano is known to have erupted most frequently this century. There's also a Kikumjani, an undersea volcano north of Grenada. Kikumjani is known to have erupted at least 11 times since it was first identified in 1938. So have they erupted? Yes, they have. Here is a picture of the Sulphur Hills volcano. It became active in 1995 and has continued to erupt ever since. Its eruptions have made more than half of the island of Montserrat uninhabitable, meaning no one can live there, and even destroyed the capital city. About 2/3 of the population has completely left the island because they can't live there. All right, next time I see you, we'll talk about what kinds of products and natural resources do we get from the Caribbean.